When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
You're listening to RFD Town and Country Partners, connecting you with the food you eat, the Illinois farmers who grow it, and the food-related events, destinations, and lifestyles that make our state great.
Welcome to RFD Town and Country Partners on a Wednesday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We always enjoy visiting with Frank Butterfield at the Springfield office of Landmarks, Illinois. You can follow them on Twitter, at LandmarksILL. Frank, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for doing this. It's always good to hear about projects in different parts of the state. And, one of the things that you try to do, or that Landmarks does, is secure funding, secure opportunities for places that need improvements over time, and sometimes that comes from funding from the state capitol.
Yes, there's been a flurry, a frenzy of activity over the past week where the legislative term ends on May 31st. Well, that's typically a lot of action happens on May 29th, May 30th, May 31st. Even this year they extended it. They were in session June 1st and 2nd. So we've seen a lot of bills get passed and a lot of different materials. So I've been combing through to see how it affects historic buildings and historic preservation statewide.
Yeah, I wonder how this goes about. I mean, does it depend on what kind of building it is? What would constitute something that would require state funding or what might be private, or, how all of that works?
Sure. I mean, we're in an interesting spot where there hasn't been much funding of late. We all recall a couple of years where we didn't have a budget. Mm-hmm. So a lot of state buildings are in high need where the maintenance and repairs have been deferred for several years. So we've got some projects that are state-owned, but there's also sometimes the state helps out with the county-owned buildings like a courthouse. But we're in a spot where there's a lot of need and still limited funds.
So one of those, in fact, so the legislature is actually, one of the things they passed was some upgrades to the state capitol itself, if I read right.
That's correct. The state capitol is a magnificent building listed in the National Register of Historic Places and constructed in the late 1860s and 1870s. And I live in Springfield, and I still see that building most days. And it's a remarkable giant structure today. I like to picture myself in the 1860s or 1870s in any sort of main street across Illinois. Seeing that building would be like a spaceship landed on the prairie. It's just a giant building. Mm-hmm. Some people know that the Capitol is the tallest of the traditional state house capitals, even taller than the U.S. Capitol. So that building is in a big need of repairs. And in 2012, 2014, we had one wing restored, the West Wing. So if you go into the Capitol today, you'll notice a big difference between the West Wing of the building and the other 3 quadrants. But in this bill that passed at the end of May, early June here, we're seeing funds. They allocated $350 million to keep that project going. Really, ideally, you'd do one wing then the next, then keep going. But we've had a pause since about the past 5 years where nothing has happened. This will have a much-needed restoration, rehabilitation of the Illinois State Capitol.
It's interesting to me that the architect for the Illinois State Capitol also did the Iowa State Capitol. That's kind of an impressive one, but the Illinois one is considerably bigger.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful style, and it took about a decade to do, and even then they ran out of funds in 1877 before they finished it. So when they had another allocation of funds in the 1880s, a different architect came in and finished it, and they kind of altered where you enter now. So if you go in there too, you can see the very first floor is a much more ornate style than floors 2, 3, and 4 when you look up in the dome. So that first floor is the 1880s architect William Boynton, and then the upper floors you can see are Alfred Pekinard, which is the original architect from the 1860s, 70s.
Yeah. Speaking of running out of funds, one of the most amazing buildings in the state, I think, also is the Macoupin County Courthouse.
Yeah, down in Carlinville, this is an extraordinary building from the late 1860s. And a very Illinois story where they allocated $50,000 for a courthouse. And at $50,000, a hefty sum of funds in the 1860s. Well, they kind of cut off construction by 1870 when the bills totaled up to $1.3 million. So they had gone over budget quite a bit, which is unfortunate for them back then, but we ended up with an extraordinary courthouse. It's a beautiful structure that, again, has had some repairs over the years, but is in need of a major restoration. In 2012, for example, Landmarks Illinois, we gave $100,000 for the grand staircase to be restored and repaired. But this current legislation in 2019 from the State House does give $1 million project to help restore that building. And to note, too, if you're ever in the area, there's a little jail building across the street, which is currently being rehabilitated and repaired by a private group.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just a remarkable building. And one of the things about places like this that are, close to 150 years old, if not more than. So, more need for repair and especially, I'm thinking about the state capitol, some of that, the detail is just so amazing. And so upgrades probably are more expensive than what a traditional building would have to go through.
Yeah, when you think about the 1860s, 1870s, how much Illinois was growing, all of these courthouses and the State House, too, these are really statements of who we are going to be as a state, that, we are a powerhouse to be reckoned with. And we wanted our public buildings to show that, we are we are a strong economy, and it's a place to do business and to live.
Sure. All right, another one, Fulton County Courthouse is a really, that's a pretty, well, it is a pretty building, or, it's a very beautiful place as well over in Lewistown.
Yeah, this is just a courthouse, Fulton County Courthouse, a wonderful historic courthouse, 1898, and again, just need of repairs. And they were allocated a $500,000 grant for much needed repairs for the Fulton County Courthouse in this year's budget. So hopefully, we'll see some scaffolding and some project happening there in the near future.
What about the Armory in Springfield? Where is that in town? I don't even know where that is.
I really enjoy this building. The Illinois State Armory is right across the street from the state capitol. It's the northwest corner of Monroe and 2nd. And because you have that wonderful State House campus where a lot of the same building elements, but in different styles. So we have limestone and columns on the state capitol. We have limestone and columns on the Supreme Court building that's more 19-teens. Well, again, we have limestone and columns on the State Armory, but this is the 1930s. So we're seeing it in a much more streamlined modern Art Deco style. A big hulk of a building with a grand a space in the middle where over the years Springfield has had a number of high school basketball tournaments, but we've also featured speakers such as Muhammad Ali, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we housed both candidates, John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, during their presidential campaign.
That's funny. I know the building you're talking about. I just forgot that was the Armory.
Yeah, most
that's very
recently,
impressive.
Folks might know it as the state police were in there for a number of years. They've now moved out, and the building has sat vacant, and it would need a major rehabilitation. It would be expensive to do a rehab. It would be expensive to tear it down, so we might as well invest in the building and bring a future use to it. I'm not exactly sure what that project is going to look like right now, but there was funding included in the capital bill for repairs.
Yeah, you find a lot of these things where, the cost just to tear it down would be immense. And it's right there in a perfect spot. You might as well make something out of it while it's there.
Yeah, it would be a really expensive project, and it would have a gaping hole in our state capital complex. When we looked at courthouses, for example, we did an economic assessment. It's called The Jury Is In on our website, landmarks.org. People can see when we invest in these buildings what the return on investment is.
We have just about a minute left. Some projects on college campuses. If you could outline a couple of those that Landmarks Illinois is a part of.
Yeah, we're always looking at investment on college campuses and ways to keep and reuse our historic buildings. We're going to see some at U of I as well as satellite campuses. I know UIS in Springfield here is targeted for a new library. The older library is actually from like the 70s, when that campus was built, and that 70s are getting historic now. But we've seen quotes from the chancellor there saying, they want to reuse that library as a classroom and gathering space too. So an opportunity to build something new and find creative reuses for the older buildings. Good
old 70s architecture. As you could tell, you're like, oh, that building was developed in the 70s, no doubt. So. Yeah, sometimes, those things need to take place. If people have any questions about what you do or where it is that you do it, where can people go?
The best place is the website. It's got our emails, our phone numbers, and a lot of information on the projects we do. That is www.landmarks.org.
Simple as that. Frank, thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Frank Butterfield, Landmarks Illinois in the Springfield office on RFD, Town & Country Partners.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com and Farm Week keep you connected.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All Now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
With another farm, family, and food-related place you, your family, and friends might enjoy here in Illinois. I'm Mike Orso with RFD, Town & Country Partners. Only a few lavender farms exist in Illinois, and for one located in far southern Illinois, peak lavender picking season has arrived.
Lavender is just a product that's brought joy and comfort to many people since ancient times.
Charlotte Clover and her husband Doug run the Shawnee Hills Lavender Farm in Union County.
It's a lot of work, but the fun part is when we open on our opening day and we see the cars and the people who are so excited that we are sharing our farm with them, and we allow them to pick, and they just absolutely just fall in love with the lavender like we have. And it's just amazing the compliments and the people, the enjoyment that the people get by coming out to the farm.
For only 3 weekends out of the entire year, the Clovers open up their lavender farm for visitors to pick their own bunches of the herb.
We give you a twist tie, and whatever you can fit inside that twist tie, we charge you $5 when you check out.
As is the case growing other crops this year, it's been a tough one for growing Illinois lavender.
We have suffered some plant loss through the winter and this crazy spring and all the rain. Lavender really doesn't like to have wet roots. So each year we lose about 10% of our crop, but this year it was more closer to 20% of our crop, which means we had to pull up the shrubs, the plants, and replace them with newbies, with new small plants, and hopes to, continue this business for many years by doing so.
Charlotte Clover says the high humidity and heavy clay soils in their area of Illinois makes growing lavender a challenge.
We've had to amend our fields tremendously and make sure we have good drainage. Plant loss is probably most likely due to not having proper drainage on the plant. And then to accommodate for the high humidity, we had to plant our plants farther apart than they do in southern France or in Washington State.
The lavender farm will be open for picking again this weekend, starting Friday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The final weekend will be Friday, June 14th through Sunday the 16th, with some special features on hand, too.
Bath and body lotions that are locally made by a local vendor. We blend tea, so we have lavender teas. We serve lavender lemonade, $1 a cup. Everybody loves our lavender lemonade.
You can find Shawnee Hills Lavender Farm along the Shawnee Hills Wine Trail, 5 miles south of the famous Bald Knob Cross near the village of Cobden. For RFD Town and Country Partners, I'm Mike Orso.
Are you preparing for planting season? We don't mean to be a pest, but here's a few things you need to know before you grow. The Illinois Department of Agriculture now requires special local needs labels, including new restrictions for the use of herbicide dicamba on top of soybeans in Illinois for the 2019 growing season. Did you know these additional restrictions go beyond federally approved labels? Remember, the label is the law. To find out more about these Illinois-specific labels, visit ilfb.org/label-aware.
Yes, I listen to a lot of talk radio, but I wouldn't call myself a political junkie. I guess that's why I like being a member of the Illinois Farm Bureau. No matter what my comfort level is, Farm Bureau has something for me and my farm. As an Illinois Farm Bureau member, I can pick and choose what's best for me, from reading election news and Farm Week to actually going to Washington. That's enough to make me a policy nut after all.
Call your county farm bureau and customize your membership today.
Welcome back to RFD Town and Country Partners on a Wednesday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Tasha Bunting joins us in studio at Illinois Farm Bureau and Livestock's program manager in the commodities division. I think I'm somewhere close to that, right?
Close. Yeah. We'll make that work.
We just got through with May Beef Month. Mm-hmm. We're right into June Dairy Month.
That's right. So
you did.
Cheeseburgers is where it's at right now.
That's a pretty good idea. So I don't mind a good thin cheeseburger, because that means you get two, and that probably means you get cheese in the middle.
There you go.
That sounds all right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You recently, and I think it was still during Dairy Month, you did a tour with Rita and saw several dairies in Bond County, different parts of West Central Illinois.
Mm-hmm, we did. So we traveled down to Bond County and had the chance to tour 3 different farms that are all very different and doing things in a remarkable way in each of their own respective industry or their farm. So we were able to see a farm that's now transitioned into bottling their own milk, and we went to a farm that was one of the first, if not the first farm that installed robotic milkers here in Illinois.
Wow.
And then we also went to a farm that raises their cows, and then they have their own cheese production.
That'd be the Marcoots.
That was the Marcoots. That's
because
right.
I've had Marcoot cheese at Kilgus Dairy in Fairbury.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right.
In fact, thinking about that, because I was probably last year when I did that, because there are several dairy events, if not this Saturday, coming up pretty soon to highlight that sort of thing.
Being Dairy Month, then a lot of dairy farms open their farm gate and invite the public out to see a little bit more about what's happening on the farm and learn a little bit more about dairy production. And so there was a few events last Saturday throughout the state of Illinois. This Saturday, I know Kilgus is having their dairy days with the Farmer Share Breakfast. And so there's a lot of other events happening throughout the rest of the month as well.
So were you able to get into the parlors of any of these dairies? Do you remember?
We did not go into the parlors. So actually, the Marcoots now also have a robotic milk system.
So there's no parlor.
Right, there is no parlor. They have a viewing deck. So there's glass that you can stand and look out into the pens and watch the cows as they go through the the milkers as well. So
it's funny to watch, though, because at least the one I saw, the robotic had some feed there, and it was really, apparently it was really tasty.
Yeah.
Because the cows would keep walking in to eat the feed, and the robot would say, "You just got milked. Get out of here." It would kick them out. For us, we had we had automatic grain that was in there, sort of a self-feeder, and so they ate the grain while they were giving milk. I mean, they might get silage different times a year, but if they're just eating pasture, or even if they're even on our wheat pasture, that was their only grain for the day. But like Kilgus, there was no grain in there. The place is just perfectly clean. I thought, how do they get the cows in there in the first place? Although part of it is the cows want to be milked after all.
So yeah, they feed out in their big barn, and they do corn silage, hay silage, and then other additives into their ration that's necessary in order to make healthy cows. And so getting them up into the front parlor from the back barn, usually there's a couple of cows that they're the leaders of the pack, and so cows are a herd animal, and they tend to stick with their herd mates, and so they travel up together as a group.
We had our leader's name was Parrot Head. She had a very narrow pole. She had, it was noticeable. She had a little fuzzy hair thing up there, and she was the leader. I mean, there were years we didn't have to go get the cows. Parrot Head led them in, and Parrot Head led them out, and they went to either the wheat pasture or the grass pasture or whatever was open for them.
She knew where it was at.
And when we lost Parrot Head, that was tough because no one took her place, and so we had to drive them in and drive them out. So it didn't make a big difference. If I remember, and our dog was busy chasing pickups instead, unfortunately. The Facebook post I believe I saw from your husband putting up bales just a couple of days ago. Is that behind schedule? Is that way behind schedule?
Way behind schedule, yes, way behind schedule. So normally by June 5th, we are in the midst of first cutting, if not maybe even wrapping things up in a wonderful year. But unfortunately this year we have not been able to cut much hay. We were able to cut just a little bit the other day to get about 6 round bales. And so that's really all that we've been able to put up so far.
Because there's a ton of grass out there.
Right.
But you just can't drive. You can't do that.
Well, if there's water still standing in the field, that's not good on your field to drive through standing water when you're trying to mow down hay and then have it dry, especially. So it's a challenging year, that's for sure.
And you run the risk, depending on how, especially if you cut it a little too short. You might ruin it for the rest of the year, or certainly for future crops.
Right, exactly.
And then even if you put it down, how long does it take for it to dry?
Well,
because there's another rain coming, and it's just hard to do. So, but we had a shortage of livestock feed anyway, and now we have a delay in alfalfa harvest, which makes it even more difficult. And it's hard to turn them out on pasture because you don't want them ripping the grass up and be done for the year either. So it's been a tough go.
Exactly. So behind on cutting hay, behind on depending on where you're at planting wise. Some people maybe haven't been able to put their corn silage out yet. So it'll be a challenging year for sure from start to finish.
You gotta love it. You wouldn't do it if you didn't love it, something like that. Tasha, good to see you as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tasha Bunting at Illinois Farm Bureau, and certainly ask around. You can search June Dairy Month also and find some dairy events in your area. I'm DeLoss Yankee, RFD Town and Country Partner.